My husband went to the bank every Tuesday for 38 years. When he died, I discovered why, and I was left paralyzed. What I found in that safety deposit box destroyed everything I thought was a marriage. Every document was a lie. Every forged signature was a betrayal, and the letter he left changed my life forever. But before we continue, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. Tuesday. It was always Tuesday. During 38 years of marriage, my husband Thaddeus left the house at 2 p.m. sharp. Rain, shine, cold, heat, it didn't matter. He would grab his car keys, adjust his tie in the hallway mirror, kiss me on the forehead, and always say the same words. "I'm going to handle some business at the bank, sugar. Be back soon." And I never questioned him. Why would I? Thaddeus was a civil engineer, methodical, organized as a Swiss watch, the kind of man who planned everything months in advance. Our bills were paid on time, never a late fee. We never received a collection letter. We never had a bad credit history. He took care of everything with an efficiency I admired. He always told me, "Relax, Eulalia. Let me handle the boring money stuff. You take care of the house, the boys, and I'll take care of the finances." And that seemed fair to me. A division of labor, a silent agreement between husband and wife. I trusted him like I trust the sun will rise tomorrow. We were a team. At least that's what I believed all these years. Thaddeus was the man who held my hand at the birth of our 2 children, the man who cried with me at my mother's funeral, the man who danced with me at Langston's graduation and at Zadie's wedding. How could I mistrust him? The last Tuesday of his life was just like all the others. It was March, a warm and stifling day in Philadelphia. He left at 2 o'clock, as always. I kissed him before he left. I fixed his shirt collar and told him, "Drive safe." He smiled that smile I had known for nearly 40 years and replied, "Always do, my love." I went to do some shopping at the Reading Terminal Market. I was in the produce aisle choosing oranges when my cell phone rang. It was Langston, our oldest son. His voice sounded strange, too controlled, as if he were holding something very heavy and trying not to drop it. "Mama, you have to come to the hospital now." My heart raced. I felt my hands go cold. "What happened? Is it Zadie? The grandkids?" "It's Pop. He felt sick at the office. He collapsed. Please, come quick." I left everything in the cart. The oranges, the groceries, my purse almost falling off my shoulder. I ran to the parking garage. My hands were shaking so much I could barely get the key in the ignition. The hospital in University City was 15 minutes from our home in Mount Airy. I drove it in 10, running yellow lights, praying under my breath. Langston was waiting for me in the emergency room hallway. When I saw him from afar, I knew. I knew even before he spoke. His face was gray, his eyes red, his shoulders slumped. When he saw me, he lowered his head. He didn't need words. I already knew. "Mama, I'm so sorry. Pop didn't make it." Thaddeus was dead. A massive coronary, 59 years old, healthy, active. He went for a walk every morning. He didn't smoke, drank socially, and suddenly, dead. He fell in his office in front of his colleagues, and when the ambulance arrived, it was already too late. I didn't cry in the moment. I just stood there looking at Langston, trying to process that information. My husband was dead. The man with whom I shared a bed for 38 years, the father of my children, dead. Everyone found it strange that I didn't cry. People hugged me at the hospital. They said it was shock, that the pain hadn't hit yet, that it would come later when it sank in. But it wasn't that. It wasn't shock. It was something else, a strange sensation in my chest, as if a door had opened inside me, as if I could breathe in a way I hadn't done in a long time. Freedom. I felt free, and that scared me more than his own death. What kind of wife feels relief when her husband dies? What kind of person was I? The funeral was a rainy Saturday. Mother Bethel AM Church was packed. Thaddeus's work colleagues, fraternity brothers from his Howard University days, neighbors, people I didn't even know, all talking about how hardworking, dedicated, honest, and upright he was. I listened to all of it and felt disconnected, as if they were talking about a stranger. Not because Thaddeus was different from what they said, but because I was starting to realize that perhaps I had never really known him. Zadie cried through the whole service. She was always closer to her father. Daddy's girl. Langston was more contained, but I saw the tears run down when they closed the casket, and I was there in black, accepting condolences, thanking people who brought casseroles, flowers, empty words of comfort. But inside, I only felt that strange emptiness. The following Monday, 2 days after the burial, a white envelope arrived. My name typed in black letters, no return address. I opened it without thinking much. Inside was a sheet of paper with the letterhead of Union Trust Bank. I read it once, then I read it again, slower, trying to understand. Dear Mrs. Eulalia Vance, we deeply regret the passing of your husband, Thaddeus Vance. According to our system records, you are listed as a co-holder of Safety Deposit Box number 1847. The rental of the box is paid until December of the current year. We request that you contact us as soon as possible to schedule access to the contents. Sincerely, Management Union Trust Bank. I stared at that paper, not understanding. Safety deposit box? What safety deposit box? Thaddeus had never mentioned anything about a box. In 38 years of marriage, not a word, not a hint, nothing. I called the bank immediately, hands trembling, heart racing. The customer service lady was polite and professional. Yes, there was a box in the name of Thaddeus Vance and Eulalia Vance. Yes, I was a co-holder. Yes, I could access it. Wednesday at 10 in the morning would work. Wednesday, 2 days away. 48 hours that felt like 48 years. I spent the entire Monday without sleeping, walking through the house like a ghost, opening drawers, looking at papers, searching for any clue, any explanation. Everything seemed normal. Documents organized in folders with labels, bills in alphabetical order, Thaddeus's impeccable handwriting on every label, every note, PICO bill, water bill, property tax. Everything there, everything in order. But there was something wrong. I felt it like when you come home and know someone was there. They rummage through your things, but you can't prove it. That feeling of invasion, of violation. But violation of what? I didn't know yet. Tuesday night, Langston showed up. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, beard unshaven, tie loose. His father's death had been a hard blow for him, for all of us. Mama, we need to talk. Those words. Everyone knows nothing good comes after them. We sat in the kitchen. He placed a thick folder on the table. The kind of folder lawyers use, manila with an elastic band. I was organizing the documents from Pop's office, the papers for his consulting firm. There's something weird here, something that doesn't add up. My stomach turned. What kind of thing? Langston opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, papers I had never seen, numbers that made no sense. He pointed to a specific line. Your joint account, Mama, the one that always held your money, it's practically at zero. It only has $1,200. $1,200? What do you mean zero, Langston? That's not possible. There has to be a mistake. We always had money in that account. Your father deposited his check. I deposited my pension. How can it be at zero? I don't know, Mama, but here it is. And there's more. The savings account you guys had, the one Pop always said was for emergencies, it doesn't exist anymore. It was closed 6 months ago. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. And the retirement fund? The investments your father made? Langston shook his head slowly, as if he were afraid of breaking me with the words. I didn't find anything, Mama. Nothing. I looked through all the documents in his office. I called the accountant, the bank manager. Nothing. It's like it never existed. But it has to exist. Your father worked his whole life. We always saved money. Always. Where did it go? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. That night I didn't sleep a wink. I lay on the empty side of the bed, staring at the ceiling. I knew by memory every crack, every shadow, thinking about the Tuesdays. 38 years of Tuesdays. I'm going to resolve some things at the bank. What was he resolving? What was he doing all that time? Memories started to come back, small details I had never paid attention to. Thaddeus coming back from the bank, tense, irritable, distracted. I would ask, "Everything okay, honey?" And he would answer, "Everything's fine, just tired." How many times, how many Tuesdays did he come back like that? And I never questioned him. I never investigated, because trusting was easier than doubting. Wednesday arrived cold and gray, the kind of day that seems to announce trouble. I dressed carefully. Black slacks, white blouse, navy blue blazer. It wasn't clothing, it was armor. I looked at myself in the mirror. 60 years old, gray hair I insisted on dyeing chestnut brown, wrinkles around the eyes, marks of a life lived. But what life had that been, after all? Langston wanted to go to the bank with me, but I told him no. Whatever was waiting for me in that safety deposit box, I needed to see it first. Alone. Some things have to be faced without an audience. The bank was modern, a building of smoked glass in Center City. Glass, steel, cold lights that made everything look artificial. The manager met me in the lobby, a woman in her 50s, hair in a perfect bun, gray tailored suit, professional smile. "Mrs. Vance, my deepest condolences. Your husband was a client for many years, an admirable man." Admirable. That word again. Everyone thought Thaddeus was admirable. Was I the only one starting to doubt? She took me to the vault. We went down in a silent elevator. When the doors opened, I saw a long room with walls covered in small metal doors, safety deposit boxes, hundreds of them, each one guarding someone's secrets. "Number 1847, she said, stopping in front of a small door in the middle of the wall. She used 2 keys, one of hers, one she handed to me, to open it. Inside was a long metal box, heavy by the way she pulled it out. "I'll leave you to it, Mrs. Vance. There's a small room over there where you can examine the contents in total privacy. Take the time you need. No rush." She left me alone with that box. I took it to the small room. A white table, 2 chairs, a fluorescent light buzzing softly. I put the box on the table and stared at it for a long time. My heart was beating so hard my chest hurt. My hands were sweating. I took 3 deep breaths, like I learned in those yoga classes I took years ago, but it didn't help. The fear was still there, cold in the pit of my stomach. I opened the box. Inside were folders, many of them, organized with that meticulous care typical of Thaddeus. Handwritten labels, everything in its place, everything in order, as always. The first folder was marked, "Real Investments, Do Not Open, Do Not Open." He had written that as if he knew one day someone would find it, as if he had left a warning. But I opened it. Of course I opened it. What I saw took my breath away. Pages and pages of losses. Stocks that crashed, companies that went under, businesses that never worked out, investments in startups that disappeared, funds that turned to dust. Hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. But they weren't accounts I knew. They weren't the investments Thaddeus showed me. They were secret accounts, only in his name. Account at Chase, loss of $85,000. Account at Citibank, loss of $120,000. Account at a brokerage firm I had never heard of, loss of $210,000. The numbers danced in front of me. How much money was that? How much of our life had been thrown in the trash? The second folder was even worse. Much worse. Loans. Urgent. I opened it with hands that were now trembling uncontrollably. Loans. 3 of them. All using our house as collateral. The house we had lived in for 40 years in Mount Airy, the house where I raised my children, where I planted rose bushes in the garden, where I painted every room, where I kept every memory. Thaddeus had put our house at risk. He had used it as collateral to get money, and I knew nothing. Not a word, not a conversation. First loan, $110,000. Second loan, $120,000. Third loan, $90,000. Total debt, $320,000. On our house, my house. My hands shook so much I almost dropped the folder. The air seemed to have vanished from that little room. I couldn't breathe right. The room seemed to be spinning. I leaned on the table, closed my eyes, tried to concentrate, but the numbers were still there, burning behind my eyelids. $320,000. The third folder destroyed me completely. Credit cards. Mrs. Eulalia Vance. My name. My full name. I opened the folder. Credit cards, 15 of them, all in my name. Accounts I never opened, cards I never saw, but there they were. My full name, my social security number, my date of birth, my signature. Only it wasn't my signature. It was similar, very similar, but it wasn't mine. It was forged. Thaddeus had forged my signature. My own husband had stolen my identity. I checked each card, one by one, with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Discover, limit of $10,000, exceeded by $2,000. Capital One, limit of $15,000, exceeded by $17,000. Amex, limit of $8,000, exceeded by $9,000. And so on. 15 cards, all maxed out, all with accumulated interest, all with my name, my social security, my supposed signature, total debt on the cards, $110,000. All in my name, all without me knowing. Every purchase, every withdrawal, every minimum payment, all done by Thaddeus, using my name, destroying my credit, turning me into a debtor, without me knowing. I sat there. For how long? I don't know. Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. Time had stopped. I was trapped in that white room with those open folders in front of me, trying to process what I was seeing, trying to understand how the man who swore to love me, protect me, respect me, had done this to me. All the questions I didn't ask, all the documents I didn't question, all the times he told me, let me handle it. And I let him, because trusting was easier, because loving meant not doubting. Because in 38 years of marriage, you build a story and you believe in it, even when the story is a lie. At the bottom of the box was an envelope, thick cream paper, quality stock. My name written by hand, by Thaddeus on the front. That handwriting I knew so well. The handwriting that wrote love notes when we were courting. The handwriting that signed the boys' report cards. The handwriting that wrote, I love you in hundreds of birthday cards, Christmas cards, Valentine's Day cards. I opened the envelope with steady hands. The pain, the shock, everything had dissipated. What remained was something colder, sharper, rage, pure and crystalline. Inside was a letter, several pages written by hand. I started to read. Eulalia, my love, if you are reading this, I have already passed, and you found the box. You found everything, and now you know. I am so sorry. I know these words are empty. I know apologies aren't enough, but I need to try to explain. I need you to understand, even if you can't forgive me. He continued. 5 years ago, an opportunity came up. A new construction firm with big projects, contracts guaranteed with the city for the infrastructure updates. The owner was a guy I knew from college. He called me to invest, said it was absolute certainty, guaranteed profit. I could triple our money in 2 years. I thought of you, of us, of being able to give you a peaceful old age, trips to Martha's Vineyard, comfort, security. He went on. I put everything we had, all the savings, the retirement fund, the investments, everything. I thought in 6 months I would double the money and you would never need to know the risk I took. But the company went under. That so-called friend disappeared, and I lost everything. $450,000, 40 years of work evaporated. My hands gripped the paper so hard they almost tore it. $450,000, our entire life of saving, all the future we planned, thrown in the trash on a gamble, a bet. The letter continued. I panicked. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't see the disappointment in your eyes, so I tried to fix it. I took out the first loan, $110,000. I thought I could invest in something smaller, safer, and recover at least part of the money. I lost it all again. I took out the second loan, then the third, always thinking that next time I would get it right, that next time I would make it back. He explained the cards. The card's in your name, Eulalia. I know this is unforgivable, but the banks wouldn't give me credit anymore. My history was ruined. So I used yours. I thought it would be temporary, that I would pay it all off before you found out, but the debt only grew, the interest, the monthly payments, everything out of control. The Tuesdays. The trips to the bank every Tuesday were to try to negotiate, restructure debts, get more time, always more time. The managers already knew me, knew I was drowning, but I kept trying. I kept believing I would find a way to protect you from this. The final confession. When you read this, we will likely be in ruin. The house will go to foreclosure in a few months. The bank has already started the process. Your credit is destroyed. Your history is tarnished. All my fault. I know you will hate me, and you have every right. I wanted to protect you from my mistakes, but all I managed to do was make you pay for them. He finished. I don't ask for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that every wrong decision I made was trying to fix the previous one. It was an avalanche, and I couldn't stop it. I loved you every day of these 38 years. That part was always true, always. But my love wasn't enough to protect you from myself. I'm sorry for everything. Please, take care of the children. Tell them their father was weak, a coward, but that he loved them. Thaddeus. I folded the letter slowly, very slowly. I put it back in the envelope. I put everything back in the box with care, every folder in its place, every document organized. I stood up. My legs were shaky, but I wasn't going to fall. Not there, not now. I walked out of that room with my head held high. The manager was waiting for me outside with a worried face. Are you okay, Mrs. Vance? I looked her in the eye. No, but I will be. I need copies of everything in that box, every document, every paper, and I need the name of a good lawyer, the best one you know. Her eyes widened. She understood. Of course she understood. She had probably seen cases like this before. Secrets kept in strong boxes, lives destroyed in metal drawers. I'll make the copies myself, Mrs. Vance, and I know an excellent attorney, Attorney Althea Dubois. She specializes in family law and financial fraud. I can call her now if you like. I would like that, please. While she made the copies, I sat in the bank lobby, people entering and leaving, normal life happening all around. But my life had just exploded. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. Everything I planned was an illusion. And the man I loved for 38 years was a stranger. When I got home, it was already past 2 in the afternoon. Langston's car was in the driveway. He must have been waiting for hours. I walked through the front door and found him in the living room, pacing from one side to the other with his cell phone in his hand. When he saw me, he ran to me. Mama, I was worried. You weren't answering the phone. I thought, everything is fine, son, or rather it isn't, but I'm going to survive. He noticed the thick folder I was carrying, the copies the bank had made. What is that? Sit down. I need to show you something, and you have to call Zadie. She needs to know too. Langston called his sister. She arrived in half an hour, her eyes still puffy from crying so much. Since the funeral, Zadie hadn't stopped crying. Her father's death had broken something in her, and what I was about to tell her was going to break it even more. We sat, the three of us, at the kitchen table, the same table where we had so many family meals, birthdays, Christmases, ordinary Sundays. Now it was going to be the place where I destroyed the image my children had of their father. I opened the folder. I took out the documents one by one. I placed them on the table carefully. This is what I found in the safety deposit box your father kept secret for years, maybe decades. I don't know for sure. Langston took the first document, the lost investments. I watched his face change color as he read. Zadie looked over his shoulder, not understanding at first, then understanding, then turning pale. $450,000, Langston whispered. Pop lost $450,000? No. He threw $450,000 in the trash on risky investments, without consulting me, without telling me, all in secret. I showed them the loans. He used our house as collateral. 3 times, $320,000 of debt, the house where you grew up, where every memory of ours lives. He put it at risk. Zadie started to cry. No, Daddy wouldn't do that. There has to be a mistake, some explanation. I put the credit cards on the table, 15 statements, my name on all of them. He forged my signature. He opened credit cards in my name, $110,000 of debt, all in my name. My Social Security, my credit destroyed. Langston turned white, completely white. This is a crime. This is identity theft. I know, but why? Why would Daddy do this? I handed them the letter. Read it. He explained everything, or tried to explain. Langston read it out loud. Every word was a stab wound. Zadie cried harder with every sentence. When he finished, a heavy silence fell, the kind of silence that comes after an explosion. Mama, Langston said finally, his voice choked. This is bad. Very, very bad. The house, your savings, your credit. Everything was destroyed. I know. How are you so calm? I looked at both of them. My children, who were still innocent this morning, who woke up thinking their father was a hero and now knew the truth. Because rage isn't going to solve anything right now. I need a plan. I need a strategy. I need to fight. And you two are going to help me. Zadie shook her head, still crying. I can't believe it. I can't. Daddy. He was always so... What? So reliable? So honest? Well, yes, baby. I thought so too. But the truth is this, and the sooner we accept it, the sooner we can start fixing it. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop. I went over the last few years looking for signs I missed, clues I ignored, and I found several. Thaddeus getting angry when I asked about money. Leave it alone, Eulalia. I know what I'm doing. Thaddeus changing the subject when I talked about retirement. We'll talk about that later. Thaddeus leaving nervous on Tuesdays, coming back tense, drinking more bourbon than usual. The signs were there. I was the one who chose not to see them. Or he was too good at hiding them. Probably both. The next morning, Zadie showed up early, unannounced. She knocked on the door at 7 a.m. When I opened it, she came in like a hurricane. Mama, we can't do this. Do what? Destroy Daddy's memory, sue the banks, say he committed crimes. We can't. I took a deep breath. Zadie, I am not going to be left with almost $500,000 of debt to protect the memory of a man who lied to me for years. But he was our father. He loved you, and he also stole from me. Both things can be true. She started crying again. People will talk. They'll judge us. They'll say horrible things about him, about us. And they will, but I prefer them saying the truth to living a lie. She left, slamming the door. Langston called an hour later saying his sister was inconsolable, that I needed to be patient with her, that she would understand. But I wasn't so sure. The lawyer, attorney Althea Dubois, saw me on a Monday, office in Center City, modern, big windows overlooking the skyline. She was a woman of about 40, natural hair styled short, sharp black suit, direct and steady gaze. The kind of woman who doesn't take nonsense. I told her everything. I didn't leave out a single detail. The investments, the loans, the cards, the fake signatures, the letter confessing it all. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and looked at me for a long moment. Mrs. Vance, I'm going to be completely direct with you. This is one of the worst cases of spousal financial abuse I have seen in my career, and I have seen many, many. The word hung in the air between us. Abuse. Your husband systematically destroyed your financial security over years. This isn't mismanagement of money. This isn't an error of judgment. It is deliberate fraud. It is identity theft. It is a crime under the penal code. But he died. What can we do? We can prove that you were not an accomplice. We can challenge every single one of those debts. We can possibly save your house by proving the loans were fraudulent. We can clear your name with the credit bureaus. But Mrs. Vance, she paused, it will be a war. It will take at least 6 months, probably more than a year, and it will cost money that I imagine you don't have right now. How much? My retainer and fees would be $30,000, plus court costs, expert witnesses, filing fees. In total, about $45,000. I thought about the $1,200 in the account, the zero balance savings, the pile of debts. I don't have that money. I figured I can do the following. I'll charge you $5,000 now to start the proceedings. The rest we can structure as a payment plan as you are able. It's not ideal, but it can be done because this is a case you have to win, and I'm going to make sure you win. That night I called Langston. I told him about the meeting with the lawyer, about the costs, about everything. He stayed silent for a moment. Mama, I have about $15,000 saved up. It's for the renovation on our house, but that can wait. I won't take it, Langston. No, that money is yours. Don't argue. You're my mother. Pop did this to you, to us. I'm going to help, period. I cried on the phone. For the first time since Thaddeus died, I cried for real, not from grief, from gratitude. Zadie, on the other hand, still wasn't speaking to me. She sent a short, cold email. Mama, I need space. I can't deal with the way you're destroying Daddy's memory. I'm sorry. Langston said she would eventually understand, that she just needed time. But I had seen this pattern before, in other families, in other cases. The person who refuses to believe the truth, the one who prefers the comfortable lie to the painful truth. The following weeks were a hurricane of paperwork. Attorney Dubois was efficient as a machine. She filed disputes with all credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. She contacted every credit card issuer with documentation proving the signatures were forged. She gathered evidence, built a solid case. We hired a handwriting expert, a gentleman in his 70s retired from the FBI who analyzed every signature on the cards. He compared them with my real documents, passport, voter registration, old tax returns. He confirmed what I already knew. Mrs. Vance, these signatures were not made by you. They are good imitations, very good, but they aren't yours. There are small differences in the pen pressure, in the slant of the letters, in the speed of the stroke. Whoever did this knew you well, practiced quite a bit, but it wasn't you. Every word of his was a confirmation, and every confirmation was a stab wound. Thaddeus had practiced my signature. He had dedicated himself to learning how I wrote so he could rob me better. Langston became my right hand. He organized all of Thaddeus's files, made detailed spreadsheets of every lost investment, every loan, every card. He created a timeline showing when each fraud was committed. He went to meetings, spoke with bank managers, investigated like a dog tracking a bone. One night, we were sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers when he looked at me with a strange expression. Mama, I need to tell you something I never told you. I put down my pen. My stomach tightened. Tell me. About 3 years ago, Pop came to me. He told me he had an amazing investment opportunity. A construction firm, guaranteed contracts, secure profit in 6 months. He wanted me to invest $50,000 with him. My heart sank. Langston, please tell me you didn't give him that money. I almost did, Mama. Almost. I had $50,000 saved in my 401k. It was savings for a down payment on a bigger place, for the kids' college in the future. And Pop spoke with such certainty, with such enthusiasm, said in 6 months I'd have $100,000. He took a deep breath. But Corinne didn't buy it, my wife. She said, If it's so guaranteed, if it's so safe, why does your father need our money? Why doesn't he use his own money?" We fought ugly about it. I got so mad at her. I thought she was mistrusting my father for no reason. But she didn't budge. She said, "You either choose to invest with your dad or stay married to me. But you can't have both." So I told Pop no. Langston looked at me with astonished eyes, full of guilt. I think he was already drowning back then. I think the construction company had already gone under. I think he was desperate trying to use my money to cover his own mistakes. If I had said yes, we would have lost everything too. Corinne saved me, and I almost didn't forgive her for it. I held his hand across the table. "But you didn't invest. Thank God you didn't invest. And you know what that tells me? That your father was drowning, and people who are drowning grab onto anything, anyone, even if they sink everyone together. Do you think he would have continued asking other people for money? His friends? His relatives? I think he was doing anything to stay afloat. And when we're in that state, we lose the notion of right and wrong, or we choose to ignore it." 3 months after Thaddeus's death, we had our first victory. 2 credit card issuers agreed that the signatures were forged. They removed the debts from my credit report. $23,000 of debt erased. It wasn't everything, not even close. But it was proof that the truth could win, however slowly. Zadie still wouldn't talk to me. I tried calling her, sending messages. Nothing. She had blocked me on everything. Langston said she was processing, that I had to respect it. But it hurt. It hurt losing my husband and my daughter in the same year. The lawsuit regarding the house loans was more complicated. The bank's lawyer argued that as Thaddeus's wife, I had benefited from the loan money, even if I hadn't signed, even if I didn't know. Attorney Dubois refuted forcefully. She can prove she never saw those funds. They were deposited into accounts exclusively in his name, spent on investments that failed before she knew they existed. She was a victim, not an accomplice. "We'll have to go to court," she told me in one of our meetings. "A judge will have to decide if you are responsible for debts incurred through fraud, even being married to the fraudster." "Are we going to win?" She hesitated, and I appreciated the honesty. "I think so. We have a strong case, but I can't guarantee it. It's complex legal ground. There have been rulings for both sides." The hearing was scheduled for September, 6 months after Thaddeus's death. 6 months that felt like 6 years. In the weeks leading up to the hearing, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked for a job. At 60 years old, I wasn't exactly in demand in the job market. I spent most of my adult life as a homemaker. I went back to working as an English teacher at language schools after the boys grew up. I retired 2 years ago, dreaming of traveling, seeing the world, enjoying the grandkids, enjoying the life I had built. Instead, I was applying for openings at clothing stores, restaurants, supermarkets, anywhere that would hire someone needing to start from scratch at 60. A language institute called me for an interview. The Wheatley Language Institute in Germantown. The owner was a woman in her 70s, completely white hair she didn't try to hide, bright red glasses, kind smile that reached her eyes. "So, Eulalia," she said, looking at my sparse resume. "English teacher for 15 years, retired 2 years ago, married for almost 40 years. Why do you want to go back to work now?" I could have lied, invented something about boredom, about wanting to stay active, about not standing being at home. Polite lies, people say in interviews. But I was tired of lies, even polite ones. My husband died 4 months ago. After he died, I discovered he stole my identity, forged my signature, opened credit cards in my name, destroyed our finances. I need a job because I am fighting not to lose my house. Ms. Etta May, that was her name, put the resume on the table slowly. She looked at me for a long time. A look that wasn't pity, it was recognition, from someone who had seen this kind of thing before. Then she smiled. Not a polite smile, a real smile. "When can you start?" I started working the following week. 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. The pay wasn't high, $1,800 a month, but it was something more important. It gave me a place to go, a purpose beyond just surviving every day. I liked teaching. I always liked it. I liked seeing the moment something clicked in a student's head, when they finally understood the difference between present and simple past, when they managed to form a complete sentence, when they started thinking in English, not translating word for word. Ms. Etta May and I became friends quickly. She had a story too. Everyone does. One afternoon, while we were organizing books in the teacher's lounge, she told me, "I was married for 12 years, she said. Ended the marriage 30 years ago. Best decision of my life." Why? He wasn't dishonest with money. At least, not that I know of. But he was dishonest with everything else. Other women, other lives, other versions of himself. Every day he was a different person, depending on who was watching. She straightened a stack of grammar books. When I finally left, you know what folks told me? That I was exaggerating. That all marriages have problems. That I should try harder, go to marriage counseling, be more understanding, more patient, more tolerant. She looked at me. But you know what I learned? The people telling you to try harder are usually the ones who never had to try for real, who never had to choose between keeping the lie alive or saving their own life. Her words stayed with me, because that was exactly what I was doing, saving my own life, even if it cost Thaddeus's memory, even if it cost my relationship with Zadie, even if it cost everything. The court hearing was on a Thursday. September, cold. Rain threatening all day, but not really falling. Langston went with me. We dressed formally. Him in a suit, me in a navy blue ensemble, like we were going to a wedding, not a war. Zadie didn't respond to my invitation. Not by text, not by email. Total silence. The night before, she sent a short message through Langston. "I can't watch you do this to Daddy's name. I'm sorry." I replied through Langston. "I understand too. I love you anyway." The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Not like in the movies. It didn't have that grandeur. It was a common room, wooden benches, fluorescent lights, the Pennsylvania state flag in a corner, noisy air conditioning. The judge was a man of about 60, gray hair, thick-rimmed glasses, serious expression but not hostile. Judge Percival W. Sterling. Attorney Dubois had researched him, said he was fair, rigorous with evidence, but fair. The bank's lawyer spoke first, a young man, 30-something, expensive suit, the confidence of someone who hasn't lost anything important in life yet. He argued that I was Thaddeus's wife, that I lived in the house financed by the loans, that I benefited from the marriage, that therefore I was responsible for the debts, even without having signed, even without knowing. "Your Honor," he said with a firm voice, "the financial institution acted in good faith. We granted the loans following all protocols, verified documentation, recorded the liens. The fact that the spouse claims lack of knowledge does not void the contract, especially considering she indirectly benefited from the resources." Attorney Dubois stood up when it was her turn. She was smaller than the bank lawyer, but when she spoke, she filled the room. "Your Honor, with all due respect, my client benefited from nothing. The loan amounts were deposited into accounts exclusively in the deceased husband's name, accounts she was unaware of. They were spent on investments that failed before she ever authorized them, ever knew of them, ever participated in them." She showed the forged signatures. "Here is the affidavit from the forensic handwriting expert, retired with 30 years of service, stating categorically, these are not Eulalia Vance's signatures. They are forgeries. Good forgeries, but forgeries. My client was a victim of a crime, identity theft committed by her own husband." She showed Thaddeus's letter. "And here is the confession from the fraudster himself, admitting everything, every debt, every forgery, every lie. This is not spousal negligence, Your Honor. It is a crime." The judge called for a recess. We went out into the hallway. Langston paced back and forth. Attorney Dubois checked messages on her phone. I sat on a hard wooden bench, completely still, hands folded in my lap. "You were great in there, Mama," Langston said. I hadn't even had my turn to speak yet, but he was nervous, needed to say something. I nodded, but I wasn't thinking about the trial. I was thinking about Zadie, about the daughter who couldn't accept what her father had done, who needed the lie, who chose the illusion over the truth, and wondering if one day she could forgive me for saying the truth out loud. After an hour and 15 minutes, they called us back. Attorney Dubois called me to testify. I sat in the witness chair. I put my left hand on the Bible. I swore to tell the truth. Only the truth. Mrs. Vance, Attorney Dubois began, when did you first know about these loans? When I opened the safety deposit box my husband kept secret, 4 days after he died, after 38 years of marriage. Did your husband ever mention taking out loans using your house as collateral? Never. Did you receive any money from these loans? No, not a dime. It all went to accounts I didn't even know existed. Did you sign the loan documents? No, I did not sign. The bank lawyer stood up for cross-examination. He had that polished aggression of a corporate lawyer, young, ambitious, lacking empathy. Mrs. Vance, isn't it true that you entrusted all finances to your husband? Yes, I trusted him. So you chose not to involve yourself in the family's financial decisions. I took a deep breath, looked him in the eye. I trusted him. That is not the same as choosing to be deceived. Trusting your partner isn't giving them permission to steal your identity. But you benefited from the marriage, correct? You lived in the house where these loans were made? I lived in my house. The house we bought together 40 years ago. The house I helped pay for over decades. The house he put at risk without my knowledge, without my consent, without me having the slightest idea of what was happening. You expect this court to believe that in 38 years of marriage you never suspected anything, never noticed anything wrong? That was the question, wasn't it? The one I asked myself 6 months ago, every night, every sleepless early morning. I looked at the judge, then at the lawyer, then at Langston, sitting in the gallery. I took a deep breath. Very deep. My husband was a civil engineer. He was organized, methodical, reliable, or so I thought. He hid his mistakes behind a facade of competence, behind my trust, behind 38 years of believing that loving meant not questioning, not doubting, not auditing the things he told me not to worry about. I paused. He hid bank statements, redirected mail, intercepted collection calls. He created an entire system to keep me in the dark, and it worked because I trusted, because in 38 years he had never given me a reason not to trust. Another pause. I was naive, probably foolish, maybe, but naivety is not consent for fraud. Being foolish doesn't mean I authorized him to destroy my financial life. The lawyer tried to continue, but the judge raised his hand. I've heard enough. I'm going to review the evidence and render my decision. More recess. This time 2 hours. 2 eternal hours. Langston bought coffee at the courthouse cafeteria. Terrible coffee. Watery. Cold. But we drank it anyway because we needed to do something with our hands. With the anxiety. Attorney Dubois was confident. Your testimony was perfect. Truthful. Human. And we have solid proof. I think we're going to win, and if we don't win, then we appeal. We go to Superior Court, but it won't be necessary. Trust me. When they called us back, Judge Sterling was already seated. He had a stack of documents in front of him. Our case, our life, reduced to papers. I have analyzed all the evidence presented, he began, voice deep, deliberate. The forged signatures, the categorical expert opinion, the emotional but consistent testimony of the defendant, and primarily the written confession of the deceased himself, admitting every fraudulent act. He looked at the bank lawyer. While I understand the financial institution's position regarding spousal benefit, I cannot ignore the clear and abundant evidence of systematic fraud committed without the knowledge or consent of Mrs. Vance. He struck the gavel, a sharp sound that resonated in the small room. I am ruling in favor of the defendant. The loans were contracted through fraud. They are therefore void. The liens on the property are canceled. The house remains in the exclusive name of Eulalia Vance, free of encumbrances. Langston squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Attorney Dubois smiled, a small professional smile, but genuine. And I felt something that had been tight in my chest for months finally let go. We had won. The house was safe. But when we walked out of that courthouse onto the cold September street, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, old, strangely empty. Because what had I really won? My house, yes. My clean name, yes. But I had also lost a marriage I thought I understood, a partner I thought I knew, and possibly a daughter who might never forgive me for saying the truth out loud. That night, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mama! It was Zadie, voice choked as if she had cried for hours. Hi, baby. I need to tell you something. Can I come over? Of course, whenever you want. She arrived in half an hour, eyes red, swollen, makeup running, hair messy. She held a folder in her hand. She came in without saying anything, sat at the kitchen table, put the folder on the table. After the hearing today, I went to the bank. I asked to see all of Daddy's records, those you showed the lawyer, those from the lawsuit. I wanted to prove you were wrong, that there was some mistake, some different explanation. She took a deep breath, voice trembling. But you weren't wrong. It was all there. Everything you said, every document, every forgery, every lie. And there was more, Mama, much more. My stomach tightened. More? He had credit cards in my name, too. She opened the folder, pulled out statements. 5 different cards. I never opened these cards, never saw them, never knew. But they're here, in my name, my social security, my signature. Only it's not my signature. How much? $28,000. My credit is destroyed. I went to buy a refrigerator on installment plan last week. They denied me, said my history was bad, and I didn't even know. Ah, Thaddeus. Even dead, his secrets kept appearing like buried bombs waiting to explode. Zadie, I am so sorry, so much. I should have... No, Mama, I'm the one who should have believed you. I should have listened to you. But I couldn't imagine Daddy doing this. He was my daddy, you know. He taught me to ride a bike. He helped me with math homework. He walked me down the aisle. He cried when my babies were born. How could that person also be this other person who stole my identity? I held her hands across the table. Both people were real. The good father and the man who made terrible decisions. People aren't just one thing. They are complex, contradictory. They can love you for real and still hurt you deeply. She started to cry. A deep cry, the kind that comes from the bottom of the soul. And I stood up, walked around the table, hugged my daughter. Let her cry on my shoulder like she did when she was little and fell off the swing. We stayed like that for a long time. Attorney Dubois helped Zadie the same way she had helped me, filed the disputes, contacted the credit bureaus, built the case. The handwriting expert confirmed, not Zadie's signatures, forgeries made by Thaddeus. Langston gathered the family, the 3 of us, sitting in my living room, surrounded by documents, making plans, rebuilding. We're going to get through this, Langston said, together, as a family. And I believed him, not because it would be easy, not because it would be quick, but because we were finally telling the truth, finally seeing clearly, finally not pretending that silence meant peace. The language school became my refuge, more than a job. It was where I felt useful, where I had a purpose. Ms. Etta May taught me about administration, inventory, lesson planning, and most importantly, she gave me space to heal. One day, a woman walked into the school, about 40 years old, lost look. She stood in the entryway looking at the bookshelves. "Can I help you?" I asked. She hesitated a lot, then said in a low voice, "Do you have material on financial abuse in marriage?" My heart clenched. I took her to a small section of self-help books. I picked 3 titles, put them in her hands, and on impulse I told her, "I have personal experience with that. If you want to talk, I'm here." She looked at me surprised. "Really?" "Very really." We talked for over an hour. Her story was different from mine in the details, but the pattern was terrifyingly the same. Husband controlling all the money, saying she didn't understand finances, that he handled everything, isolating her from information, from decisions, from her own financial life. "I feel crazy," she said, "like I'm inventing things, seeing problems where there aren't any." "You are not crazy. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Trust your gut." When she left, she hugged me. "Thank you for believing me. My husband says I'm paranoid. My mama says I'm exaggerating. But you believed me." After she left, Ms. Etta May looked at me. "You're good at this." "At what?" "At listening for real. At believing without judging. At seeing the person behind the problem." I thought about Zadie's initial reaction. About the friends who drifted away when I started talking about Thaddeus, uncomfortable with the complexity, with the ugly truth. "I know what it's like not to be believed," I said simply. In the following months, more women appeared. I don't know how the word spread. Word of mouth, maybe social media, church groups, but they came. Some to buy books, others just to talk, all carrying stories similar to mine. Ms. Etta May suggested creating something more formal. "How about a monthly support group? Here at the school. Back room. Only women who have gone through financial abuse." "You think folks would come?" "I think you'd be surprised." We put a small ad in the local paper, the Philadelphia Tribune, posted on the school's social media. "Support group for women victims of financial abuse. First Tuesday of every month. 7 p.m. Free." At the first meeting, 12 women showed up. 12. I was expecting 3. At most. We arranged chairs in a circle in the back room, made coffee, put cookies on a tray. I started by telling my whole story, the Tuesdays, the safety deposit box, the forgeries, the legal battle, the daughter who didn't believe, the slow and painful reconstruction. When I finished, the silence was absolute. Then, one by one, they started to speak. One told how her husband had sold her car without her knowing. Another, how her ex-husband had emptied the joint account and fled. Another, how her father had stolen the inheritance left by her mother. Different stories, but all with the same pattern. Control, isolation, manipulation, lies. "How did you manage to stay strong?" one of them asked at the end. "I didn't," I answered honestly. "I cried, I screamed, I got mad, I got terrified. I spent nights without sleep, whole days without eating, but I kept going because the alternative was to give up, and I had already spent too many years letting others decide for me." The group grew quickly. Second meeting, 17 women. Third, 22. Fourth, we had to rent a larger room at a community center in Germantown because they didn't fit in the school anymore. We shared resources, names of lawyers who charged a fair price, tips for rebuilding credit, strategies for dealing with family who didn't understand, useful websites, financial tracking apps, knowledge that could have saved me years of suffering. One night, after a particularly intense meeting, Ms. Etta May and I were left alone organizing the chairs. "You know what you're doing here, right?" she told me. "You aren't just running a support group. You're building a legacy. Thaddeus tried to destroy you, leave you with nothing, no money, no credit, no future. But you took what hurt you, and you are using it to help other women. You are transforming poison into medicine, pain into purpose." She fixed the last chair. "This isn't just survival, Eulalia. It's transformation. It's a silent revolution." I thought about that word, transformation. I spent so much energy trying to go back to being who I was before, trying to recover the life Thaddeus had stolen from me. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the goal was to become someone new, someone forged in the fire of betrayal, of loss, of the hard work of rebuilding. 1 year after Thaddeus's death, we held the group's anniversary meeting. 28 women in a circle. Some I knew intimately, others were relatively new, all connected by the invisible thread of having trusted someone who broke that trust. When my husband died, I began, I thought my life had ended. In a way, it did. The life I thought I had, the marriage I believed in, the future I planned with such care, everything died with him. I looked around the circle, attentive faces, some crying silently, others nodding in recognition. But something else was born, not immediately, not easily, but gradually. A new version of me, stronger, wiser, more cautious, but also more compassionate, because now I know what it is to be deceived by someone you love. I know what it is to discover that your whole life was based on lies. I continued. What Thaddeus did was wrong. Legally, morally, ethically wrong. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to soften it. I'm not going to excuse it. But what I did after was my choice. I could have stayed trapped in the rage, in the victimization, in the hate. Instead, I chose to move forward, rebuild, and help other women do the same. After the meeting, a young woman approached. Couldn't be more than 35, eyes red from crying. My husband handles all our money, she said. Says I'm not good with numbers, that I don't understand, that I should let him handle it. But something feels wrong. I can't explain it. I just know it's wrong. I held her hands. Trust that feeling. Ask questions. Ask to see the bills, the statements, the investments. Don't let anyone, not even someone you love deeply, keep you in the dark about your own financial life. And if I'm wrong, and if I'm being paranoid, he's going to get furious. Then you'll look foolish for 5 minutes. You apologize and move on, secure that you were protecting yourself. But if you're right, and you don't investigate, I squeezed her hands, you can lose everything. Everything. She came back the next month with documents. Her husband was siphoning money from the joint account, investing in cryptocurrency without telling her. He had lost $87,000. She had filed for divorce. I'm terrified, she told me, hands shaking. I don't know how I'm going to survive, but I also feel free for the first time in years. I knew exactly what she meant. Months passed. Zadie's credit was regularized, just like mine. Langston invested his savings in a 529 plan for his kids' college, locked, protected, where no one else could touch it. And I continued working at the school 3 days a week, coordinating the support group that had grown so much it became a small nonprofit, moving forward, day after day, step by step. On what would have been my 39th wedding anniversary, I went to the bank. Not Union Trust, where the safety deposit box was. A different bank. On the other side of town, a credit union in Fishtown where Thaddeus never entered. Where no one knew my story. I opened a new account, only in my name, and I deposited my paycheck from the school. $1,800. Modest, but mine. Earned with my work, my sweat, my rebuilding. The teller smiled. Anything else I can help you with today, ma'am? Actually, yes. I would like to change the name on the account. She took the pen. How would you like it to read? Eulalia Chestnut, my maiden name. I wanted to go back to being who I was. Before the marriage, before Thaddeus, before the 38 years of trust turned to ash. She typed into the system, Done, Miss Chestnut. Your account is updated. Miss Chestnut, no longer Mrs. Vance, no longer Thaddeus's wife, just Eulalia, just me. I walked out of that bank with my head held high. The sun was shining, a beautiful spring day, fresh air, blue sky, and for the first time in over a year, I felt like I knew exactly who I was. If you are reading this, if anything in this story seems familiar, The locked doors, the secrets, the nagging feeling that something is wrong but you can't identify what. Trust yourself. Ask questions. Insist on answers. Look at the documents, the bills, the statements. Don't let anyone tell you that love means blind trust, because it doesn't. Never did. True love means partnership, transparency, mutual respect, shared decisions, not secrets, not isolation, not control disguised as care. And if you discover you were betrayed, if you open that safety deposit box and your world crumbles completely, remember, you are stronger than you imagine. The person who tried to snuff you out didn't succeed. You are still here, breathing, fighting, surviving, and that means you can rebuild. It's going to hurt. It's going to be hard. There will be days when you want to give up. But you won't, because you are a survivor, a warrior, stronger than any person who tried to destroy you. I rebuilt my life from the rubble, and you can too. Believe in me. Believe in you. And never, never let anyone keep you in the dark about your own life. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect. And